Miria was deep enough off the forest path that she hadn't worried about running into human visitors. She'd also lived here long enough to identify various bird calls, and she could pick out the difference in sounds between a squirrel or a mouse or a vole, never mind a larger creature like a deer or a boar. Even if she wasn't paying attention, it would be difficult for any of the forest's normal inhabitants to sneak up on her. But the sounds coming from the east definitely did not belong, nor were they familiar, and Miria placed a hand on the nearest tree, asking what it knew. Trees did not communicate like humans, but this particular oak left her with the impression of two creatures, neither of whom appeared particularly threatening, at least not to a tree. The snapping of twigs and underbrush grew louder and closer, and finally grew more recognizable. Although she could see nothing as yet, Miria was positive one of the creatures was a horse. She slung her bag of mushrooms over her shoulder and headed uphill toward the noise. The girl who'd once needed help protecting herself from a wild boar was long gone. A horse, even if accompanied by a lone soldier, didn't worry her. To be safe, however, she wrapped her forest cloak around her shoulders. The cloak was created from a beautiful patchwork of leaves, maple and oak and birch and more in every shade of green. And they were still as supple as the day Miria had collected them. But the cloak's real magic was that it could conceal her in the forest. When she wrapped it tightly and pulled up the hood, she faded from view like a caterpillar among the grass. Yali had one just like it, and the day she'd taught Miria how to make her own had been almost as exciting as the day she'd begun teaching her how to create tule. Concealed in this way, Miria walked until she found, as anticipated, a horse. She didn't know much about them and had never ridden one, but even she could tell this horse was beautiful. Tall, pure white, and regal. An equally expensive-looking saddle sat atop the horse's shiny coat, bearing an unfamiliar crest stamped into the leather. But that was all Miria noticed about the horse, because then a young woman appeared around its far side. Of all the scenarios that had run through her head once she'd identified the sounds of a horse, that its companion would be a girl near her own age had never been one of them. A lost woodsman, a guard or constable searching for someone, an unfortunate traveler. They were all men. Women, especially young ones, did not go wandering the woods alone. And if they were the sort who could afford a fancy horse and saddle, they especially did not do so. Women like that did not work. They were sheltered and guarded. If there ever had been guards, or a guardian with this woman, however, they must have also been lost. The woman's face was pinched with worry. Withdrawing her cloak, Miria started forward, and the sound of the leaves crunching beneath her boots drew the woman's attention. She turned sharply, one hand reaching for the sword at her waist. Yet another incongruity that Miria was only just noticing, and she gasped. "Hello?" Miria said, although it came out more like a question than a statement. The sword was muddling her already confused thoughts. The woman's shoulders relaxed, which was as sure a sign as any that she did not immediately assume Miria was a witch. "Hello?"